Welcome back. CHAYA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to addressing housing and economic needs among low income South Asian and Indo Caribbean residents in New York. Their mission involves delivering essential services to the community and empowering individuals to shape their own futures and build resilience in the face of challenges. Here now joining us is Executive Director of CHAYA Community Development Corporation, Annetta Seecharran. Annetta, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you provide an overview of CHAYA's mission and the specific housing and economic needs it aims to address for low income South Asian and Indo Caribbean New Yorkers?
CHHAYA is a community development corporation dedicated to serving low-income South Asians and Indo-Caribbean New Yorkers. Let me tell you who this community is. We are often misunderstood. I think the model minority myth sort of casts us as a group of folks who don't really need any supports. However, South Asians suffer from among the highest rates of overcrowdedness. About 30% of populations that we serve are below the poverty line. This community often is daunted by the barriers facing them around housing rights. They often don't understand their housing rights. They often face language barriers, and has for a very long time been forgotten or ignored when it comes to housing needs. And so CHAYA has been, for the last 2 decades, working to address these critical housing needs facing low-income South Asians and Indo-Caribbeans.
Now, CHAYA's approach involves providing direct services while empowering individuals to shape their own futures. Can you explain how this strategy works in practice and some of the critical services you offer?
Absolutely. So we are a small nonprofit. And in fact, I should say that we're the only South Asian driven community development corporation in New York City and in the nation. And our community is large, the needs are complex. So there's only so much that a small nonprofit can do in terms of meeting the critical needs that the community faces today. We recognize that. And with that, we believe that addressing issues that affect every New Yorker, systemic issues around housing, around exclusion, around economic well-being, that we have a perspective and we have a role to play in changing the systems that not only just affects the folks that we are unable to serve because we're a small organization, but every New Yorker who needs our services. So I'll give you an example. At the height of the pandemic, CHAYA played a leading role in advocating for the Homeownership Assistance Fund or rental assistance for New Yorkers. And that effort goes beyond the limited number of folks that we serve. And so hence, we have always believed that we must use the insight, the information that we have as a result of our direct service work to inform system-wide change.
Now, over the past 20 years, CHAYA has been actively involved in advocating for systemic changes, including basement legalizations and tenant rights. Now, I'm really curious, can you talk a little bit more about the basement legalization and, why that was important, especially for your community?
Many New Yorkers rely on a basement income to be able to afford their homes. And this is in every borough, in every community. Basements have served as safe, affordable homes for thousands and thousands of New Yorkers since the very beginning. And yet, many basement units are considered unauthorized. And what we have seen for a very long time now, for decades now, is that homeowners can face unexpected fines that can range anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000, and those fines can destabilize the homeowner or threaten their ability to be able to keep their home, and of course also displace a tenant. And very often these relationships are informal. They often work, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they don't work. And so the the goal with the basement legalization campaign is to create a citywide program that would support homeowners in bringing their units up to code so that they can rent them legally. And it would also support tenants to ensure that they are that these units are safe, because some of them are not safe. Many are, and some are not. Um, and then we also saw with the recent with Hurricane Ida, the fact that 11 people died in basement units was truly, I think, an a moment that I think showed very clearly the critical importance of addressing the basement issue. Basement units serve as an important part of the affordable housing market, and yet we do not have a formal program that supports these units to come out of the shadows and to be formalized so that tenants can be safe and supported and homeowners can be safe and supported.
Thank you so much for clarifying that. And, that's just like one of the many things your organization has done, over the past 2 decades. Can you talk about some of the policy issues that CHAYA is currently advocating for? And what impact have your efforts had on immigrant communities in New York?
Yeah. So there are many issues that CHAYA continues to work on, whether it is for long-term support for homeowners or greater tenant protections. But in recent years, we have been really leaning into the commercial rent issue. Small businesses are the backbone of New York City. They create neighborhoods that we love, that make New York City so unique, so special. They also provide an important income for people who work there and for the small business owners. Yet they suffer from a lack of protections. We've seen over recent years with gentrification and just a tight market in general, that commercial rents have been skyrocketing, and they just continue to rise, and especially in certain neighborhoods. Yet there are no supports and protections for commercial tenants, so they are truly at the whim of the landlord. Many are sometimes just thrown out without any notice. And so the idea is to create better supports, better protections for small businesses. And we feel like, as we think about the future of New York City, ensuring the stability of small businesses is going to be critical.
And then can you talk about how that's, important for communities of color, especially immigrant communities, across New York City?
Many immigrant communities rely on a small business not just for their income, but for their sense of connectedness, for services, whether it's like foods that they that is affirming to them culturally that they need, whether it's just other cultural services, right? They're absolutely critical, and actually the our small business districts really make New York City special. It's the thing that differentiates us from the average city in the United States is the thriving small business sector. And so this is absolutely critical for the stability of communities and the stability of jobs, and for the creation of a sense of belonging and community and connection for immigrant populations and communities of color in general, not just immigrant populations, but all communities of color.
Now, civic participation is a crucial aspect of CHAYA's work. How does the organization encourage South Asian and Indo-Caribbean voices to be heard at the local and national levels? And what initiatives have you undertaken to promote civic engagement?
So, this is going back to this issue of what else does CHAYA do beyond meeting the critical needs of our communities today? Again, we are a small organization, and we believe that change can really occur only if community members are voting, are involved, and are making their needs and voices heard. Otherwise, social services is really functioning at the margins and just taking a band-aid approach. but we are really interested in long-term, deep change. And so, really, the only way to effectively do that is to uh, support community members to become more civically engaged, to join community boards, to vote, because electeds care about this. And the communities, I mean, we've seen across, in not just here in the city but across this country, the loudest, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? The voices that are the loudest get the resources and the supports and the opportunities. And so CHAYA does this in many ways. We typically for elections, in key elections in districts where there are large numbers of the communities that we serve, we do voter education, and just basically GOTV work. In the past, we've done citizenship work, but primarily now these days we are really focused on educating community members about the importance of voting.
Now, I also want to add earlier in the segment, you mentioned the model minority myth. Do you think being more engaged in this way in the community can help kind of put an end to that myth, because now people are, able to like hear the voices and kind of understand the experiences of, people from this community? So, do you in any way think that like being more civically just engaged and things like this can help fight against the model minority myth?
Absolutely. And I think it takes many things, but it also, for sure, the voices of the people as the most powerful voices. And I think if we don't tell our stories, if we don't make our needs heard, our, we will we will never get the supports and the resources that we need.
Now, CHAYA organizes direct action and community mobilization, engaging community members with local government processes. Can you share some examples of successful community action or campaigns that have made a difference in the neighborhoods you serve?
There are so many. Historically, CHAYA has organized to get South Asian languages on the ballot. I spoke earlier about the Homeownership Assistance Fund. These are some examples of the kinds of things that CHAYA has been involved with. I will say that, again, we are a small organization. We do none of this work alone. We work very much in coalition with our partner organizations across the city in different spaces, whether it's the economic justice space, the housing space, or the immigrant rights space.
And, I think that's actually really interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of collaborating with other local, organizations? Because, sometimes I think it's important to have organizations that focus on specific communities. But I think, like you mentioning how, you've worked with other organizations and that you don't do it alone is also really important and worth noting. So, can you expand on that a little bit more?
It's impossible to really effect deep and long lasting change if you work in isolation. It takes all of us. And again, the policy issues that we work on is not just for any singular community, it's for all New Yorkers. And we need each other. We may bring, for example, we've been leading the basement legalization campaign, but we recognize that this isn't an issue that just faces South Asians, right, and Indo-Caribbeans, that this is a citywide issue. And to be able to effectively run that campaign, we don't have the capacity or the expertise to do the data analysis that's needed. And so we worked with our partner organization, Pratt, for example, who really lean in on the data piece, or other groups like CHPC, who help with some of the sort of design concepts and some of the bigger policy stuff. So these are some examples of how we collaborate. But in the years that I've been doing this work, I've seen again and again that the most powerful, effective, and fastest change occurs only through broad-based collaborations. And we as like relatively new Americans, we recognize that we stand on the shoulders of Black Americans, of Latinos, of people who've been doing this work for decades before us, and we see ourselves in alliance with those communities, and work very closely in collaboration with those communities and all marginalized communities.
Now, another thing that's kind of important that you mentioned is that, like, many of these communities have similar goals and similar things that they want to achieve, and also face similar challenges. And I think that, one of those challenges is becoming a homeowner. Now, I understand your organization actually offers a first-time home buyer program and a foreclosure prevention program. Can you just talk a little bit about, the services that you offer to help assist people, in this realm?
So our first time home buyer program is one of our signature programs. There's the demand is always high. And really what we do, buying a home in this country, in this city, is a daunting process for anybody, whether even if you're not limited English proficient or you are comfortable financially. And so when you look at like low income folks, low to moderate income folks in this city, it's very challenging, and it continues to be even harder, given the tight housing market and the skyrocketing prices of homes. And so our program takes prospective home buyers through a process where we help them understand like what's involved. What's involved financially, what does it involve, how to plan ahead to ensure that you're able to keep this home that you've worked so hard for, how to prevent foreclosure. Ultimately the goal is to ensure more Black and brown homeownership in New York City, which has been steadily declining in recent years.
Now, can you discuss Chaya's future goals and initiatives in addressing, the housing and economic needs, and just all of the many challenges of the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean communities in New York?
There are so many. We believe the work that we do of ensuring the housing stability and the economic well-being of our community is the right goal. It's what's needed right now. We will continue to lean into that. I think we believe the direct service work that we do, whether it's the homeownership education work, the tenant work, the small business work, the immigration legal services, and financial education, free tax prep, and all the policy work, all of that is absolutely critical. Our goal is to continue to grow those services, to take them to neighborhoods that are underserved. For so long, as I mentioned earlier, in this conversation, our communities have been invisible to social services and to policymakers. And so our goal is to continue to draw attention to the needs of our communities. And we truly believe that, in this notion that all boats rise, that, if by leaning into the needs of our communities, there is a rippling effect across our neighbors and neighborhoods and the city.
Now, could you quickly just let us know how can individuals and organizations support your mission and contribute to the betterment of the communities you serve?
There are many ways. There are many ways. Learn more about CHAYA. Go to our website at www.chhayacdc.org. Reach out to us. We are always looking for volunteers. We are looking for dozens of volunteers to be a part of our free tax prep program. You don't have to be an accountant. You just have to be interested. And we will train you. We need volunteers. We are always hiring people. If you are interested in making a difference in the community, in this work, and to have a great, fulfilling career, check us out. We are, of course, we rely on financial support to be able to do our work. We are a nonprofit organization that is funded by multiple sources, individuals, foundations, and government sources. And so support us. And those are the ways in which you can.
All right. I want to thank you so much for joining us and, talking with me and really sharing your experience, that so many people in your community have. And then I know as a, person of color, we share very similar experiences. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.